Hey, I'm Seb Fry. I'm with Realty World Virtuoso here in Aptos, California. And today we're doing a Google Hangout to talk about water quality issues and water conservation for the homeowner. And on the line here we have an expert in water quality and conservation. His name is Jerry Bulfin. He's with CleanWaterStore.com. And he knows everything there is to know about water quality and conservation. So Jerry, hey, thanks for joining me today.
It was my pleasure. Happy to be here.
All right, so Jerry, now I know we have a lot of things we can talk about here today, but even though it's raining cats and dogs, finally, it's been a long time. Water conservation is an issue for everybody in our area here in Santa Cruz County. So, what are some things that that homeowners can be doing to improve their water conservation around the home?
Well, the first thing they should do is an audit, try to find out how much water they're using. A lot of people are unaware of how much water they actually use. So the first place to start is with your water bill, which a lot of people, do anyway, but good idea, check your water bill, see what you're using, and then, become aware of what you're actually doing with your water. A lot of the biggest wasters of water is leaving the faucet running or a leaky toilet. A lot of people have toilets that are running, they don't realize. And these are a lot of common things we've heard about time and time again, but now that it's a drought, it's a good time to do a quick audit. And if you have kids, talk to your kids, make sure they're aware not to leave the water tap running. Just by doing some very basic common sense without installing any conservation equipment, you can often cut your water bill by up to a third easily.
Now, interesting. Now, what is how many gallons is considered to be efficient? Like, let's just say I have a four-person household. How many gallons do you think that we should be using per day if we're going to be efficient?
Well, it's often said that the average American uses somewhere around 50 to 80 gallons per person per day, but that's a very unusual high figure. In the world, generally, often people use 10 to 20, 30 gallons a day. So
Wow.
we could easily, by putting in a low-flow shower head and being aware of what our water use is, we could easily cut our water use to somewhere in the area of 40 to 50 gallons per person per day. Without anything over that would be considered pretty wasty.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I had no idea that Americans use so much more water than everybody else in the world. Do you have any idea why that is?
Well, there's quite a few reasons. One is our washing machines are bigger. We wash clothes more frequently, and of course, everybody takes showers and baths every day, which is good. But I want to encourage that. But we kind of grew up in a culture of abundance. We don't really the cost of the water is artificially cheap. It's not a huge part of our budget. We don't really think about it much. So a lot of people just aren't aware of it. In the world, the people are much more conscious of how much water is being used. So that could be one reason.
Yeah, the scarcity mentality, I think, is at least when it comes to water, is something that I think are going to be really hearing a lot more of, at least out here in California, right? I mean, like, it is a semi-arid place after all. There really isn't that much water.
That's
To begin
right.
with. And in Santa Cruz County, we get all our water domestically, I believe. Is this right, Jerry, that we are the only county in California that gets all its water domestically?
I believe all the water, yes, all the water in Santa Cruz County comes from Santa Cruz County. That's true.
Yeah, and like most like San Francisco, they get their water from Hetch Hetchy, right? Which is like 300
Hmm.
miles away or whatever, right?
Right.
Right.
So we have to be very careful. Um, like give you an example. Our family, just by putting a 5-gallon bucket in the shower, we started capturing our shower water and use that to flush the toilets. We're able to cut our water use by about 10%. And,
Interesting. Just by doing that, huh?
and we use a lot. We reuse a lot of the water. Put bowls in the sinks. A lot of people aren't going to do that, but we just tried to figure out how much water can we save, and we ended up cutting our water bill by half. We used to spend somewhere around $50 a month. Now we're spending about $24 per month.
Wow, that is pretty great indeed. So let me ask you this: what about rain barrels these days? I know those are very popular. A lot of people are going to rain barrels.
Very popular. Yes, we have many customers of ours, some clients that use the rain water not only primarily for irrigation, but some people actually do use it as their sole source of water, particularly in Texas and some other areas where they have a severe shortage, or if they live off the grid, a lot of people will catch their rainwater. But just for simple um, technique is just you run the gutter into barrels, and then you can use that water for your garden. Then you don't have to treat it, you don't have to filter it or disinfect it. It's just garden water. That's the primary use of water, of the rainwater.
Yeah. And so where do you actually get these rain barrels? You know, I've never really seen them for sale anywhere. Do you get them on Amazon, or how much do they cost, and how much does it usually cost to have them like installed in your house? Is that something you do by yourself, or are there people?
Yeah, well, it depends on how elaborate you want to do it, or how much you want to depend on it. But in Santa Cruz County, there's a rain barrel program where you can get it right through the county. They've ran out this year, but they're going to do it again, where they give free rain barrels out. And then
free. Did you say free?
That's what I understand. There were free rain barrels given out, or maybe they were very low cost. I don't know. I missed it myself. I didn't get one, but you can get them for a lot of. You go online. A lot of storage tank sites have them. They're pretty reasonably priced. You get 55 to 100 gallon poly tanks. And you could just very easily route your gutter from your roof into that.
Right. All right, now that's something not something that I could do because I'm not really mechanically inclined. But my neighbor right next door, he has rain barrels. He has probably about 4 or 5 of them, and I know he collects rainwater in the winter, and he uses a lot of that during the summer.
Yes.
So listen, you know, I have a water softener, and I hear that thing going off in the middle of the night, once a week or so. How much water is my water softener using?
Well, it depends on the model, but water softeners can use anywhere from 75 to 150 gallons of water each time they regenerate, and that's another topic or area that we're working with a lot of our customers in the drought-stricken areas, is that they can take a look at their water treatment equipment and make sure that it's set correctly. Because a lot of times people they program the water softener to regenerate more frequently than it needs to. You might be able to reduce it by 30%, save on your water use that way through your water softener. In other words, say it's set to regenerate every 1,500 gallons, you could turn it down to every 1,200 gallons, and save water. Next time I come over, I'll take a look at it.
Okay, but so now if I do that, though, does that mean I'm going to have like harder water, like at the end of the cycle, or?
Yes, that's right. So you can't. That's right. You can't do it too much. You have to. It basically involves some, investigation to figure out. You wouldn't want to go too far, so you'd have hard water. But what I'm saying is, a lot of them are set too liberally. They don't need to regenerate so frequently. But if you do need it, you need it. What can you do?
Okay. Now, are there any alternatives to these old-fashioned? I mean, my water softener is probably only 10 years old, but I'm guessing that there might be some newer technology out there that's more water efficient than a traditional water softener. Is there anything else that we can do, or?
Yes, there is. There is new technology now out that they're scale conditioners that will treat your water without using any water at all. They don't use any salt or water. They don't actually soften the water where the calcium is removed, but they transform the calcium scale in the water, the minerals, so that it can't build up on any of the pipes and fixtures. It depends on how hard the water is, but if the water is hard, moderately hard to less hard, then those scale watcher things work really great. If you have severely hard water, say over 25 grains per gallon, then some people still prefer to stick with a water softener. So it really varies, depends on the area. But most Americans could switch to this new technology, and then you don't have to add salt. It doesn't use any water, and the water tastes better, and it's you don't have to add any salt or any sodium in your water. So that saves a lot of water. A lot of people are switching to those.
Well, it probably also saves a lot of salt too, and people are worried
That's
about
right. It doesn't
dumping all
use
the
any
salt
salt.
into the ecosystem. I guess
That's
a
right.
concern for some people too. So now, how much do these systems cost? Like, if I want to get rid of my own, because I'm on Soquel Creek Water District, which I know you're familiar with the water out there. It's not anywhere near 25 grains, right? It's probably more like, I don't know.
No, we have many customers switching in that area, and they're actually the folks at the Soquel Creek Water District did look at these systems, and they partially recommended them. They didn't endorse them, but they looked into the technology, and essentially it runs between $600 and $900. It's about the price of a water softener. It's not thousands of dollars or anything, for sure. And they're very extremely effective. Yeah.
Okay, great. And so now that's just to buy it though. But in terms of like repiping my water softener, do I have to like repipe it, or no? Is it just like slide right into the existing loop for the water softener?
Yeah, it slides into the existing loop, but there's no drain. It doesn't require any wastewater.
And so there's no backwash or anything like
There's no
that.
backwash. No.
So so what do? You just like replace the insides of it periodically?
Yes. About every 5 years, the material inside needs to be replaced at a cost of about $300. So it's not maintenance free, but it's pretty easy to do, and it's much cheaper than salt over the period.
Right. Okay. All right. Very interesting. Now, so that's a great thing to look into. I will have to look into that. And you have those at cleanwaterstore.com, I assume.
Yes, we do. They're called the Scale Stopper.
The scale stopper. Okay. All right.
Scale
Great.
Stopper. Yeah.
Now,
We ship them all over the world. People are very happy with them.
okay. Great. I should check into that. So listen, I also have a reverse osmosis system. I know those are pretty popular around town. Now, I'm not sure, but I think I hear mine gurgling away sometimes. Is that water being wasted, or what's going on when I hear that happening?
Yes, it's true. Because of a lot of people, when they get water softeners, because it does increase the sodium in the water, they want to put a reverse osmosis system in, which will take out the sodium, purify the water. So for every gallon of pure water you get, you waste about 3 to 4 gallons of water. So the reverse osmosis systems do use some water. So water you hear gurgling, it's going down the drain as wastewater. That's carrying away the salty water. What you can do is you can actually run the tube, the wastewater tube, the little poly tubing from there, drill a hole out the wall and run it out to your bushes and run it outside to reuse that water, repurpose that water for irrigation.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, great. Now, what else can we learn about reducing our water usage in the home? I mean, we can look at getting a high efficiency washer. I mean, I have a high efficiency washer. Are there like super high efficiency washers right now, or what else is out there?
Yeah, high efficiency washer is good. Probably the biggest thing is if you have an old toilet. The toilets, because people flush, especially the children, they flush a lot of water down the toilet. So by upgrading your toilets, those are really save on the water. The new toilets use a fraction of the water as the old ones do, and they are much more effective now than they used to be. One flush does it. So yeah, the new ones use air, and so it's flushing with air and water. It's a very powerful flush, and that's highly recommended. That's where I start. The second place to look is your shower heads, low flow shower heads. That saves a lot of water too.
So let's back up here to the toilets. So they use air somehow. And they use like the 1.3 gallon per flush now, because like
yes,
most toilets were like 1.6, but now they have 1.3. How do they use air? Do you like put an air cartridge in there, or how does it work?
What happens is that when there's a tank, a little air tank in the flush box behind the toilet, and when water goes in there, it sucks in air. It's a venturi that draws in air, and it creates compressed air in there. So when you're flushing, you don't need a huge force of water. You're actually using the compressed air to blast that water down the toilet.
Wow, that actually is pretty cool. I had no idea. So how much do those cost? I mean, like a regular toilet's like $125. How much is one of these 1.3?
They are several $100, $300 to $500. But the thing is that you can get tax credits, and off like Santa Cruz County, they have a rebate program for that as well.
Oh, wow, very interesting. Wow, learning all kinds of stuff here today. Okay, so now that's something for most anybody would want to know that. I think really wherever you live, not even Santa Cruz County, but anywhere. But Jerry, I know that you are an expert, and I don't use that term lightly. You're an expert on well water. Is that correct?
Yes, most of our customers are on well. We're specialists.
Right. So let's see here. So I'm a realtor, right? So I sell houses to people with wells, and they don't, we'll do a water test and we'll do a flow test and we'll have someone look at the equipment, right? But, a lot of times people are going from city water to well water. They don't know what's involved in living on a house with a well. So, what can you tell us about moving into a house with a well? What are the first things that people should be asking themselves when they're looking at buying a house that actually has a well on it?
One of the first things they should do is make sure they get an accurate water analysis. They should, most areas have a lab that they can talk to. They should talk to the county health department. Oftentimes a realtor will know and recommend a lab. but they should get a general mineral analysis and a bacteria test done and actually know exactly what's in the water. And secondly, they should usually have a well inspection done. So oftentimes banks or other will require it if there's a mortgage involved, but a well inspection is where a well pump or a well driller will come out and do an inspection of the well, test how many gallons per minute it can produce, and then make sure it's in good shape. Because there's a few things that they can look at so there's no surprises. You know, the well could be old, there could be a cracked seal, sanitary seal, the pump could be old, where it could be very expensive repairs if people move in right away. But it's good to know what's going on with your well. Those are the two main things: water analysis and a well inspection.
So now, what should be looked for specifically? I mean, there's like a lot of stuff you can be checking for. Is there some things you want to look out for in particular, or?
Right. Well, there are quite a few things. There's there's the actual depth of the well, the age of the well, the how many gallons per minute the well produces, the location of the well. For instance, say the well is at the bottom of a hill where there's a stable or some other rural like animal above it. During a flood or a heavy rain, you could get that water flooding the well, something you wouldn't want. So yeah, there's many things. There's a checklist that they can use, but usually the well driller or their well pump contractor will have records. That's the other thing, is a lot of times usually there's a lot of records already existing on the well. Oftentimes the seller will have those, and you can see when the well was drilled, when it was last serviced, how old the pump is, and get information that way. A lot of people moving to a rural property, they've lived in the city, they've never considered well water before. Just water, turn on the tap, there it is. So I know we have many customers contacting us that are really surprised to realize that they have to put in some kind of treatment system. For instance, maybe the water stains, ruins their clothes, or has a bad odor, that kind of thing. So it's good to do your homework.
Now, you mentioned there's a checklist. Like, what checklist is this? Like a checklist of things that you should know before you, or while you are evaluating a well system, or what checklist is that?
Yes, we're members of the National Groundwater Association, and the National Groundwater Association, I believe it's wellowner.org. That's a good site to reference. Wellowner.org has a good checklist of what to do when you're looking at a rural property and new to wells.
I didn't know that either.
You can email us too for the checklist if they want. We have such checklists as well.
Okay, what's your email address?
So our email is info@cleanwaterstore.com.
Okay, and now you also mentioned the age of the well. So why is that important?
Well, many wells are actually quite old and still working fine, but some wells are, say, over 30 years old. They have an improperly installed seal, so it's easy for water to leak from the surface down into the well. So if it is heavy rain, they can encounter a situation where the water quality changes. They have bacteria. That's one example. Generally, during heavy rain events, the well water shouldn't change quality because it's groundwater. You're pulling from a lower source. It takes some time. So if your water were to change dramatically during a rainy day, then you've got problems, because then that means that the water's leaking from the top down into the ground. So the other age is that if the pump's been in there for like 15, 20 years, then you figure you're going to have to buy a well pump soon. That could easily set you back $1,200, or more, for a well contractor to come in and pull the well pump out and install a new pump. So also the pipes that lead in and out of there could be aging and corroded. So there's quite a few things. Yeah. So
that sanitary seal, that's only been running for 30 years? They've only been doing sanitary seals for 30 years?
Not necessarily, but a lot of wells were installed with different techniques and different, there were certain requirements that just came up in the last, say, 30, 35 years where they became more mandatory. So But we certainly do see a lot of wells in the Santa Cruz County area without sanitary seals. You do run into it.
Okay, so now how can you determine if the private well is going to produce enough water for your household? I mean, like, let's say you go there, you get a report, and it says it produces, 5 gallons a minute. Is that enough, or what's considered enough?
Generally, they do that. That would be a pretty minimal amount, but that is acceptable. Anything less than 5 gallons a minute is pretty small for a family. Some wells that do produce, say, 2 gallons a minute, at that point they require a storage tank be installed. So the water would flow into a storage tank, and then they would accumulate over the day and provide enough water for the family.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, storage tanks. So, a lot of places that have like 12, 20 gallons a minute will have storage tanks too. Aside from fire prevention, is there any reason why you want to have a storage tank? And do you need to do anything with your storage tank in order to keep the water clean inside the storage tank, or what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, storage tanks have a lot of advantages. There is the true about fire protection, but you never know when your well pump could go out. So it's really great to have a storage tank to have stored water on hand. Unless the water is really poor quality or has bacteria in it, generally a new storage tank with a tight-fitting lid, they won't become contaminated. It's very unusual. So you don't have to do anything really to the storage tank. People do sometimes add different types of systems, such as chlorinators or ozone systems, to keep the storage tank disinfected if they have odor or iron problems or bacteria problems. But for most people that have just good hard well water, you don't have to do anything. The storage tanks should be cleaned periodically, at least every few years, drained and cleaned and inspected. But it's not something you have to deal with on a monthly basis or anything.
Yeah, so I see that a lot. I see where people have I can't tell you the last time I saw a chlorinator out there in the field, but I do see a lot of ozone drips going into storage tanks. So is chlorine pretty much gone now and everyone's just using ozone all over the place, or?
You do see a lot of ozone systems in Santa Cruz County, but generally in the world at large, the chlorinators are more common. But they're a lot cheaper, and it just depends on what the situation is. People put in ozone systems for dealing with iron or odor, and you can use chlorine or ozone. If you use chlorine, then you need to have a filtration system to remove the chlorine. Usually, people don't want to bathe or drink the chlorinated water, but yeah, it just depends on the application situation. Once you know the water chemistry, then a water treatment professional, member of the Water Quality Association, like we are, could definitely make a recommendation on which way to go. There's many things to consider, as far as water quality and water treatment goes.
Right. So, I'm just kind of curious. So the ozone just drops into the tank, and it causes the iron and the manganese too comes out of there, or is it just what does the ozone do?
The ozone is like chlorine or also aeration. What it does is that it oxidizes the iron and manganese in the water. So the water coming out of the ground, for instance, would be the iron may be dissolved in the water. It may look really clear, but once it gets exposed to air, or ozone is much faster and more rapid oxidation than air alone or oxygen alone. So then it turns to rust, and then once it rusts particle, then that can be filtered out. If you let the water sit in the tank long enough, it will settle, but it doesn't really settle in the tank.
Okay, so the ozone takes out the iron, manganese, and organic contaminants like E. coli and cholera. Is that what it does?
Not as well. It depends on the ozone system. Most of the ozone systems that you see around that are dropped in the tank, those are not effective on coliform or bacteria. It's not a proved way to treat. If you really had E. coli, you wouldn't want to depend on that, because you need a certain amount of ozone in a small space with a certain amount of time. So it's very easy for water to pour into the tank that's contaminated and go out the pipe the other way before it's been treated. Those ozone systems are generally more for taste or odors or iron, and they run 24 hours a day, and they put out very low levels of ozone. So they're not really for disinfection, but you can use ozone. It is a very powerful disinfectant, so it is possible to use ozone, but it requires something different than in a big storage tank.
So then, basically, if you know you have let's say you have a well that is contaminated because you don't have a sanitary seal or whatever, you're going to want to have it disinfected before it goes into the storage tank. Is that correct?
That's true. That's true. Usually they will line the well if your well is really old and hasn't been upgraded. Then oftentimes the well contractor or driller will go ahead and line that well and seal it for you. It's not hard to do. So it's important to protect the source first before you do any kind of treatment. In other words, you want to try to figure out if you have coliform or E. coli, what is the source of the contamination? You should deal with that first, not just treat it and cover it up. You know what I mean? It's better if you're able to actually protect your well and seal it off. That's first. But yeah, having said that, there are you can treat the water. You can treat it with ozone or chlorine as it goes into the storage tank. Also, we have ultraviolet light is very popular, where people will use the water in the storage tank for irrigation, and but before it goes into the house, they'll run it through an ultraviolet light sterilizer, kills everything. So that's another way to deal with it.
So also, with this drought that we've been having, we've been hearing a lot of problems with people's water quality getting worse. Because I don't know why. Well, why does the water quality get worse when there's a drought, and what can people do about that to protect themselves?
Yes, in many areas the water table is dropping, and as it drops, the water contaminants can increase, and the water quality just gets worse. More iron, more sediment. So it does have varies, but there's not much can be done. I mean, for instance, this storm that we're having now is a pretty heavy storm, but they said it might take 15 of these storms just to make a dent in the drought. So to think about it, we're a long way. The groundwater is really depleted, so it'll take a while.
So if you are experiencing a lower water quality in your well because of the drought, what do? Do you just drill a deeper well, or do you look at upgrading your water filtration system, or what are you doing?
That's right. A lot of like agricultural applications, or also some people on homes, if they're really low in water, that's correct. They will drill deeper. Yes, that's right. It depends on the area. The local well drillers know, but some areas have an aquifer that's lower they can access, and then sometimes they don't. So, but you can put in storage. You can also cut back on the amount of water you're using for landscaping and irrigation. We didn't talk about it, but here in California, a lot of people putting in xeriscape, which is basically native plants use very little water, and once they're established, they don't use any water, hardly. So there's ways you can cut back the landscaping. Usually, it's the biggest user of water, in a home if they have irrigation. So they can put in a storage tank, or yeah, that's right, they might have to drill deeper. That can be quite expensive, and there's no guarantee that it'll work.
Okay, now you mentioned about you filling the buckets up from your shower water. Now, what about more like gray water systems and using that for irrigation? I know a lot of people in Santa Cruz have used gray water for years, but they just dump it out, don't actually use it. As the county, do you know if they approved any kind of like gray water for landscaping kind of permitting process or anything like that?
They're getting a little bit more. There has changed, but they still don't want you to use gray water that you bathed or showered in to like run it through hose bibs or have it be available for garden hose. You have to be very careful. It's supposed to be treated. We recently participated in a rainwater project, not even gray water, and the county required UV disinfection for that, even though it's just being used for the toilets. So you have to be a little careful with gray water, because there's a potential for bacterial spread disease and bacteria. It is possible to sanitize it, though. There's a lot of new technologies coming out. For instance, you can use your washing machine water and repurpose that for gray water by using ozone in the laundry instead of soap. So there's a lot of people are switching to ozone generators that ozonate the water as it flows into the washing machine, and then you can use just a tiny bit of natural soap, and then you don't have any chemicals in any detergent, and the water is disinfected, and you can just run that water right out to the garden.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. So we're actually maybe going to move to a future where you can actually modify your plumbing in your house and like put on a little miniature treatment plant for your non-sewer water and use that for
Yes.
landscaping. Is that what's going to happen here pretty soon,
Yes,
or?
that's right. That's right.
And,
Hmm.
and,
Yep.
and Santa Cruz County is actually like looking into that, and they're getting hip to that, huh?
Yep. Hmm. Yep. There's more and more discussion of it. Um, there's some codes involved, and they don't want people using the gray water directly yet, but it varies by state as well. Some states are more relaxed about it than others, but yeah, it's definitely evolving.
All right. Well, that's really cool. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on that. Now, if is this kind of stuff like what we're talking about here with the newer technologies and stuff like that? Do you have stuff like that on your website so people can go and like see what's out there for gray water or this what was the name of that water softener? The spot
The scale stopper.
scale
Yes, we
stopper.
do, Sebastian. Yes, we do. Right on our site, cleanwaterstore.com. We have many of these technologies available, and we have many hundreds of customers using our systems on rainwater all over the country and
All
other
right. Well, I'm
countries.
gonna have to go and spend some more time on your website. And listen, Jerry, I really appreciate all the time that you've been able to share with us today. I know you're very busy, so thank you very much. And is there anything else you wanna tell our viewers here and our listeners before we sign off?
Well, just enjoy your water. You don't know the worth of water till the well runs dry, right?
That's right. Enjoy your water.
So
What were you doing with
appreciate
that,
that
man?
water. Well, Sebastian, thank you for being here too.
All right, Jerry. Listen, this was fun, and maybe we can do it again sometime down the road.
Okay. Alrighty.
Thanks,
Take
Jerry. See
care.
you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.